I think you can be a cautious, spiritual, heart-centered person and have abundance. I don't believe money changes you. I think it amplifies you.
Okay.
And I think if you're a kind, generous, heart-driven person, you'll be able to do more of that with resources.
Hello, everyone. This is Chris Grosso with the Indie Spiritualist podcast on the Be Here Now network. I am honored and super excited to have a very dear and lifelong friend, Matt Winkley, with me today. Before we get into this conversation, I would love to read Matt's bio, and then we're going to see what comes up and flow. So Matt Winkley is a businessman and a mystic who doesn't see a difference between the spiritual world and the external world, finding meaning in both. He built companies with integrity and has a passion for bringing spiritual principles into the workplace. Matt studied intensely under the tutelage of the great spiritual Sufi master, Sidi Muhammad al-Jamal, and who wrote many books on the Sufi path, including Music of the Soul. During these years of study, Matt transformed himself from the inside out. Living closely to the lifestyle of a monk, he maintained years of celibacy, hours of daily meditation, prayer, and reflection, leading to profound inner transformations and healing. Taking these teachings into the area of business, Matt seamlessly integrated both worlds, creating unique leadership styles and heart-centered business practices. After deep contemplation, Matt decided to sell his beloved healthcare company that helped improve the lives of thousands on the autism spectrum to focus on healing from an autoimmune disease that plagued his once robust health. As a savvy investor, Matt was able to create financial freedom in his 30s and now uses his time to give back. He mentors young conscious entrepreneurs, teaches meditation classes, and supports charitable causes. And it's been an honor to witness you in all of these capacities, Matt, and more. So again, thank you for taking the time to be on the show. And there's so many different directions we can go with this. For listeners, I first want to say, I've known Matt for a very long time. We first got to know each other in a small town in Connecticut, East Haddam, magical little place. We played soccer together. And then our lives kind of went apart. You went to a different high school than I did, but it's been so awesome to reconnect with you, since I came back out to California, and to learn about your journeys and how they took you into Sufi mysticism, and, my journeys going into Ram Dass's teachings and other mystic traditions as well. So I figure let's start with what brought you or your interest into Sufi mysticism? What put you on that path? Was there anything before that, or how did you come to that?
I think when the student's ready, the teacher appears.
Yeah.
And pain is a wonderful motivator. Sufism to me it's a path of self-realization. It's a deep mystical path on the inner journey, and it helps the person go from here to here. The longest 7 inches to travel from your head to your heart.
Right.
And so at that point, when I was in just a lot of emotional pain, I mostly lived from here up and didn't really know much about this. It was, I didn't know that there was a life below here.
Right.
It's just follow whatever pleasure or follow whatever thoughts are in my head. No rhyme or reason. I don't know why I'm doing things. It just, kind of guessing and following the script of what is expected of me, I guess, to that point.
Yeah.
What brought me to Sufism, prior to prior to my initial initiation into the path was just living the typical American life where I went to school, I partied a lot, I had a lot of fun, I graduated college, I didn't know what I wanted to do, I didn't really know who I was, and I was just sort of led by one thing after another. And growing up in that small town, I knew I had like one sort of inclination was I wanted to get the hell out of this small town. No offense to small town America, but I just wanted, I had bigger aspirations and dreams, and I just really wanted to see the world. So I booked a one-way ticket to California from the East Coast with essentially the shirt on my back. And I arrived on the beaches of San Diego, California. And that was sort of as big as I could dream. It was just like leave, escape. And I landed in this beautiful beach town. And I was like, wow, this is about as big as I can dream right now. And then it was like, how am I going to, pay for my life out here? What do I want to do? And so that's what sort of initiated looking around, how am I going to pay for my life? That I wanted to, be my own boss. I wanted to try to start something that mattered and figure out how money works. And, so I started my first business out of a small apartment here in San Diego, not knowing anything about organizational development or business or leadership. I was like in my early 20s. But I just wanted to be my own boss. That was kind of like dream number 2. And so I threw up a website, and the business was related to, I was a social work major in college, and that was kind of the only experience that I had up at that point. So I was really good at working with kids on the autism spectrum. And I started a company that was based around providing services to that population. And literally started out of my apartment with my co-founder as my business partner, and was just able to scale it a little bit at a time. And while I was doing that, I also went through like a really traumatic breakup, and I had never experienced that kind of like emotional pain before, where it was just like just hit me so in the solar plexus, and I was just like could not eat, I couldn't think, I couldn't like sleep, but I was just like what, and whatever I did wasn't helping. I would try to exercise, I was trying to get an endorphin high, I would try to do anything to escape that pain, and I couldn't outrun it, I couldn't outthink it. It just was like there. And at this point, for whatever reason, I didn't want to follow the guidance of my peer group, which was, forget about it. Let's just go to the bar and meet someone else or whatever, all that stuff. And I was like, no, I really want to understand this. I want to understand what's going on with me. Why do I suck at relationships? Why am I horrible at love? Why? What is this pain about? And I wanted to unearth it and really get below the hood on it. And so I would go, I didn't know where to start. This was kind of before social media where there was like a lot of information. I would go to the bookstore, and I would go to the self-help aisle, or I would go look at like spiritual teachers, hoping that there was an answer in these books. And I would sit there and I'd read, and they would talk about these incredible states of consciousness and accessing these parts of yourself. And I'm like, that's what I want.
Yeah.
I want to be able to taste it. I'm tired of reading about it. I actually want to feel this. I want to experience it. What is it like to become realized, or to experience like enlightenment, or whatever it is that these books were talking about? And so I had that in the back of my mind. I'm like, I'm looking for a way to do this, because the books sound amazing, but I want to practice it. I want to feel it. And so I just happened to be sharing what I was going through one day with a colleague of mine. And she's like, you should talk to my friend who's a Sufi healer. And I'm like, what the hell is a Sufi? What's a healer? What is
Right.
this? I'm like, but I'm pretty desperate to find relief from what I'm experiencing. And it sounds interesting. And maybe this person can help me open that door of tasting that I'm looking for, where I want to experience something that's beyond my normal operating self. And so I took this meeting, and it was just a really humble, older person that was a lot older than me. Wasn't like, the Dalai Lama or something like that. It was just a normal person. But she had been going through this school where she was learning about Sufi healing. And she's like, and I shared with her what I was going through, and she's like, I think I could help. And I would be happy to teach you the practice of remembrance, which is this meditation to help you go into your heart, to really feel like what it's like to drop into the heart space. I'm like, let's do it. And so the first time she taught me this meditation, I had like a slight sort of, I think something's happening. I'm not sure. I wasn't sure what I'm supposed to be experiencing or looking for, but I think maybe I feel a little bit different. And then we did it again, and I think that got a little bit brighter, but I'm not sure. It's like I feel calm and a little bit more peaceful inside, but not too different. And then like the third meditation that I did was what really changed my life, is where I had a phenomenal mystical experience where my heart just completely opened. And it was visceral, it was visual, my senses were wide open, right. It was auditorial, it was almost as if I'm like on a psychedelic drug. But there was no substances involved. It was just pure just beautiful inner journey. And I was like, wow, this is what I'm after. This is what I wanted to experience. I felt no pain. I felt incredibly peaceful. I felt this blissful, ecstatic state of just pure love. And I just had this unconditional love inside me. The person who hurt my heart, I just had love for. For myself, I had love for. It was just, it was unbelievable, indescribable sort of mystical experience. And I left that meditation with so many questions.
Right.
Where did I go? What happened to me? Who are you?
Yeah.
Like, where did you learn this? What's going? So that started my inner journey.
So let's pause there for a second. I want to, if you're comfortable with it, perhaps go in a little bit to that practice or that meditation. I don't know how long it is. I don't know if you can do an abridged version or not. And if not, that's okay. But maybe you can even just describe what that entailed. What anchored you into there. Is that something you're able to talk about, or is that beyond? Okay.
I can talk about it, but again, it has to be experienced.
Yeah.
And like I was reading in the books that I was consuming about these types of experiences, I couldn't taste it till somebody walked me through it.
Right.
And held my hand through that experience.
Right.
And I was also, I think, just ready.
Yeah.
I was in a space of vulnerability where I was allowed to let the guard down, the walls down, where I'm like, I'm willing. Yeah. There was like a willingness to go there.
Yep.
We're like, this is kind of scary. I don't know where I'm going. I don't know what I'm going to experience, but I felt enough pain that I was just like, if there's something beyond this that I could learn about, I'm really open to it.
Yeah.
So I can describe it, right? So on the inner path, there's a lot going on. the first sort of door to walk through is the door of the ego. And it guards the door very well. It protects us. It honestly, it cares for us. It wants to keep us safe. It wants to not, and by doing that, it also keeps a lot out.
Yeah.
not much gets in, but not a lot gets out. And so it's limited. And to be able to go past the ego and the journey beyond that is about surrendering and also feeling into the subtlety of energy. And so it's not just about like quieting the mind, where there's a lot of practices about that. This is about filling the heart. Like yeah, empty the cup, but we want to fill it with something.
Right.
Right. And as we empty the cup and letting go and all the things, as you move through the ego, it's like really, 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 really about quieting it down, slowing things down, feeling the sort of the shift and the subtlety of that energy as you go in. It's something that has to be felt. It's kind of hard to even express. I don't even know if I have the vocabulary at times to express what the energy is like. But as it shifts, I almost like visualize these doors that open. And like sometimes I can see like I'm standing in front of my heart. I'm like visually seeing myself standing at the gate or the door of my heart. And I'm like, is this door open or is it closed? And feel into that. What does it feel like when the heart is closed? What does it feel like when it's open? What does it feel like when it's stuck? You really have to engage your senses, engage your feelings with this. And as I was doing this, the first few meditations, it felt like I couldn't go anywhere. I was just in like mud or stuck. Like the door hinges were rusty and it was just like rigid. And I was almost like trying to force it open. Come on, heart, open. Right. And this is where like the teacher that I had at the time was helping me to relax into the experience, surrender, let go, and start to build this relationship with the divine, where you're building trust. It's kind of like dating for the first time, you know, where you go on a first date and you're feeling it out, you know, like, I don't know if I want to, you know, go to like life partnership.
Right.
Like, do I like what I'm experiencing? Do I trust you? Can I trust you? Right. And it's like building that sort of intimate relationship with the inner. And that's what I was doing at the door of the heart. I was like, what is the divine? What is source energy, God, whatever you want to call it, whatever word you like to use.
Right.
Whatever you want to call it that, but call on it. Right.
Yeah.
And so I started to call on it. I was like, if there is a God, what do you sound like? What do you look like? What does it feel like to be in your presence? What does the heart taste like? What does it feel like? What does it look like? And slowly, I just started to see this little light coming through the crack of the door, and it started to like slowly open. And then you get kind of excited. You're like, oh, I think something's happening, but I don't want to lose this moment. And then you try to grab onto it.
Right. Yep.
And then you lose it.
Yes. Yes. Of course.
So it's about like relaxing at that. Okay. And allowing it and to let go. Like I almost like visualize like holding on to the wheel of the car where I'm just like letting go one finger at a time. And I just let go of the wheel. And I say, what does that feel like if I let go of the wheel? Is the car going to go off the road? Am I going to go in a ditch? What's going to happen? And it's scary to like really, really let go.
Yeah.
So as I practiced that and I could feel my hands coming off the controls, right? I could feel the presence of something else that was beyond me, that I knew wasn't me. It was different.
Yeah.
It had a different sound. It had a different feeling. Like my normal natural state of thoughts were just buzzy.
Right.
It was super quiet. It was still, and it was starting to come into my presence. And I was like allowing that to fill me a little bit more.
Yeah.
Let go and come in a little bit more, a little bit more. And as that door widened, I was like, as if I was just in a sailboat and the sails were being filled by the wind of the divine. And I let go of the rudder and this beautiful vessel just drifted in.
Wow.
And it just brought me down the river. And I ascended further and further and further and further in. And I was just disappearing more and more and more and more. And then there was like this new presence, this new like beautiful, subtle energy started to arise. And I let go even more. I said, where will this go? And then it would just go even further, deeper and deeper, like to the depths of this gorgeous ocean, this ocean of mercy, this ocean of love, and just swimming and being in this presence and feeling this nothingness, but feeling this beautiful presence at the same time. And this surrendering and surrendering and surrendering and letting go. And seeing that energy take over me, take over my thoughts, take over my feelings, take over my sensations. And now I'm really still. Like I don't even want to move an inch. I'm so in and connected to this state, this consciousness. I'm starting to dissolve into this light. And that light gets bigger and it grows. And now the feelings are getting bigger. And now there's like, almost like a voice that's not your voice, right? I know my voice.
Yeah.
This is another voice. It's almost like an angelic sound guiding me, giving me information about my life, about my purpose, about why I'm here, about things I didn't know.
Yeah.
And as I'm releasing more and more, I'm starting to come up on like veils or pictures of who I thought I was. And I'm seeing those disappear.
Yeah.
And I'm seeing the new who I really am up here. So it can be this like beautiful journey in. It's, for me, it's very engaging. It's not just sitting still and quieting myself. I'm going on a mystical journey.
Yeah.
And I might spend, I studied, as you said in my bio, I studied with a great Sufi master who, for 10 years until he passed away, and he taught me so much of the path. And as that door opens, the path begins.
Right. Yes.
As you walk through each step and each station of the way, that you think that you're like, this is some amazing mystical trip. And it's just like, just the beginning.
Right. Yes. So, when you're talking about, however you worded it, not verbatim, but these images of yourself that you thought you were, it's reminding me of, Ram Dass talks about, in Be Here Now. He was on a psychedelic experience, but
Yes.
he had this experience where all of the roles he was seeing them, and he's like, all right, well, that one's disappearing, and that one's disappearing, and then it ended up even like his body it's gone,
Yes.
and in his own way, I think that was emerging, with this totality of what is, and I love that this experience can be described from so many different vantage points, often from the various wisdom traditions.
Yes.
And Sufism is one that for me, sadly, I don't know a lot about. I know some Rumi quotes and Hafiz and Kabir, beautiful, beautiful mystic poets. But so for anyone listening that and myself very much included, that doesn't know a lot about Sufism. I know there's whirling dervishes, and
Yes.
can you talk a little bit about that?
Sufism is like the sap of a tree, and the bark of the tree is what like religion is, right? There's every religion has like a system, if you look at it like that way. And in that system is a way to reach realization. And a lot of the outer parts of like a religion are the divine laws, are the rules, or do this, don't do that.
Right.
And they can be off-putting, but they're there to protect like the bark of a tree, to protect the sap of the tree. The sap of the tree is the mysticism. Every path has like a mystical aspect
Absolutely.
of that path.
Yeah.
And Kabbalah or the Christian Gnostics,
Vedanta.
Sure. There's many, right?
Yeah.
And so Sufism is one of those mystical paths. It's the sweetness.
Yeah.
Right? If somebody presented bark to me at the beginning of my journey, would have repelled against it.
Yeah.
I don't want bark. That doesn't taste good. But someone presented to me the sweetness, and I just, please give me more.
Yeah.
My heart just swelled. I never felt that before. And so I wanted to keep drinking the sweetness and consume as much of it as I possibly can. And so, yes, in Sufism, there's the whirling dervishes, there's many Sufi orders, right? And so the one that I studied, my master teacher is from the Shadaliya Sufi order. And Shadaliya was an ancient Sufi teacher, and it's passed down from one generation to the next. But Shadaliya was this fabulous mystical Sufi teacher who had many, many students. And he would bring students in. One of his requirements to work with him, to study with him, was you had to have an occupation, a job. It wasn't about going and escaping and living in a cave and disappearing and just being, out of the world. It was very much about being in this world. Maybe not being of this world,
right.
but being in this world.
Yeah.
And moving around and being able to integrate the sap in this world, to be able to live with a full heart in this world. And so I learned a lot of the path through Sidi, who wrote many, many books on the Sufi path. Music of the Soul is probably a great place to start if listeners want to learn about my Sufi guide that I studied with. Talks about the whole path right there. And there's 28 stations of the way. They call it the stations of the way. And it's about moving through the ego, and it's about moving through the heart stations, and moving through the soul stations, and moving into the secret, and into full self-realization, and then bringing that back and embodying that in the world, and not disappearing and going and live out in a cave and meditating 20 hours a day.
Yeah.
It's really being super, super present in this world. And so that could lead into another topic that we could cover is at the same time as I was studying Sufism and I was going, head into this, I also started a company.
Yeah.
So I had a foot in both worlds. I was like the classic Shadaliya student, where I was very much had a job, was very much in this world, and I was practicing being in this heart-centered place and connected to my soul and moving through the veils and moving through the stations while I was building a company.
Yeah.
And so that was a lot of fun and interesting. And I tried to merge the two worlds. I didn't want to have a separate world. This is Matt, Sufi Matt, and then this is, entrepreneur Matt.
Right.
It was like, no, just one Matt.
Yeah. Resonates.
And so I brought in a lot of spiritual principles into business and how to develop a lot of leadership where we were connecting to our highest intentions. We became truth tellers. We created space where we were allowed to have those conversations, where we were driven by values and a mission that was bigger than us, that we coined the phrase that the value system is our boss, that we were being led by something that was more than just a manager or an owner or a CEO. We were like led by these principles. And I was practicing, I was trying to figure out how to do this. I had no examples
Yeah.
that at the time where I could see something that was done at a high level. So I was in my 20s and in my 30s. I was doing this in my 20s and 30s and trying to figure it out. And I wanted to build, a heart-centered company where we believed in something bigger than ourselves. We trusted in something that was bigger than ourselves, and we trusted each other, and we trusted our purpose. And so it allowed me to bring these out into the world. You say, how can I test this not in my meditation, but in the boardroom?
Yeah.
And in difficult conversations with others, or in how to create a company culture. But the company that I started was a healthcare company that provided therapeutic services to kids on the autism spectrum. And it was a beautiful business with some bright-hearted people. I think at the height we had a few hundred employees, and we served thousands of kids, teens and adults on the autism spectrum, and did some very noble work and changed the lives of many, many families. And it was cool. It was a great journey.
Yeah. Well, so one of the many gifts, having you come back into my life has been, and I mean that, you're a dear heart friend since I've come back to California, and or not come back, since I moved to California. You've been there, through some rough times for me and some good times. One of the gifts, aside from just your presence, and I love listening to you speak about Sufism. You're just, to me, very embodied when you talk about anything. But I've had a really difficult relationship with money in my life.
Mm-hmm.
Punk rock, hardcore, and money is the root of all evil, and fuck the corporations. And I'm not saying that in certain ways there's not still truth to that, but you've helped me start to shift my relationship or understanding with finances and money, and other people too. But seeing that you can have a successful life, but you're still like a very present, amazing human being, and money is not like your driving force. I know that about you. So I see someone who is done some really good things in the world, and to me has a very healthy relationship with money. So that's been helpful for me. I'm taking baby steps. It's still I watch as I'm learning about finance. I'm very financially illiterate, but I'm realizing I'm about to be 46. I need to change that dynamic in my life. I need to become more financially literate, know at least about how it works. I mean, it's embarrassing for me to say, I don't know, I wasn't budgeting. There's a lot I don't know, but I'm learning. And all of this to say, it's actually very spiritual for me.
Yes.
to watch what's coming up, and when I feel, aversion or apprehension or just uncomfortable around money, it's becoming a practice for me to sit with that and look at that and what's underneath that, So, anyway, so you start this company and you're incorporating these teachings, which I think is wonderful. Can you talk to me a little bit about, I know along with that came some chronic fatigue, and that was very life-altering for you. And to me, it seems like that's become part of your practice as well. I think I jumped ahead with that though. I want to get to that in a minute. But what I want to come back to is, I think some people that listen to this show might be like me and have this issue with money. And it's also interesting for me is Ram Dass. If I remember correctly, I don't think he took any money for his teachings. It just wasn't part of what he did. I don't think he spoke out about money, but that was just his path. So for someone like me that's listening and, is struggling with like a relationship with money, do you have any advice about that?
I think you can be both. I think you can be a cautious, spiritual, heart-centered person and have abundance. I don't believe money changes you. I think it amplifies you.
Okay.
And I think if you're a kind, generous, heart-driven person, you'll be able to do more of that with resources. I think if you're, an asshole and, and want to destroy things, and you come into money, you'll be able to do more of that.
Yeah.
I think it just amplifies what's already inside of you.
Yeah.
So I would love to see spiritual oriented type people be able to create abundance in their life, because I think they'll do amazing things,
right?
Charitable things. I think they'll be able to do amazing things in their communities, giving back or take care of their health or take care of their families. I mean, it's an important tool in our culture to understand, to learn, to know how it works. It's easy to just make these narratives and these judgments about people who have resources and people who don't. And I just don't I just see it as energy.
Yeah.
I look at it as like a tool. Like if you're going to build a house, you're going to need a hammer, you're going to need some nails, you're going to need heavy equipment. So if you want to build a life, it's one of the tools you're going to need to pay for your life.
Right.
And so I grew up not knowing much about money myself. I grew up on a farm, and hard work was essential.
Yeah.
I thought that's how you essentially would build wealth in your life, is you just work your ass off.
Yeah.
And so I think there's some truth to that. There is going to have to be some output to create that. But I also learned the hard way that that's not necessarily the full truth, because I worked as hard as I possibly could, 100-hour work weeks, grinding and hustling. It's hard to start something.
Yeah.
And to keep it going, where the fail rate on startups is like really, really high. Most of them don't make it past 5 years. So when I hit the wall with health issues that were brought on by chronic stress, and I couldn't get out of bed because I had developed, I burned my body down to a point where I couldn't get out of bed, and developed an autoimmune issue that was chronic.
Yeah.
It was a wake-up call. It was, wow, I'm 30 years old and I feel like I'm like 90 years old. I have no energy, completely fatigued. I'm having all these weird symptoms and sensations in my body. I thought I was having a heart attack at one point. What is going on? And that led to a really healthy discussion with myself and my wife. And what do we want in our life? Do we want to grind ourselves into a pulp to just barely make it? Or do we want to flourish and thrive? And what does flourish and thriving look like? For us, we got really clear on it. Was flourish and thriving for us looks like freedom. That we have the ability to live where we want to live, that we can travel and be mobile, that we can spend time with the majority of our time with people that we care about, that we love, our families who didn't live near us, that we could spend more time. That was a life worth building.
Yeah.
That we could pursue our passions full time, that I could live in balance, that I could, if I wanted to start a family, that I could be a present dad physically and not just be at a job the majority of the time. That was motivating me. How do I do that? I'm not a trust fund person. I grew up in a hardworking, middle class family. I didn't know the first thing to how to do that. I thought that you were born into this situation, and that's how people think they had a trust fund or something.
Yeah, right.
And so, but when we put that target on the table, and we said, well, this is our highest intention. This is where we want to go. There has to be a way. And I really have to credit, my wife in this, is that she was an incredible resource, like really driving it forward about finding a way to this. And she really went out and did a lot of research and found methodologies and financial philosophies and investing principles that I never heard of. Never heard of passive income. Like, what the hell's that? What do you mean? You just make money out of thin air off of money that already, like, what is this concept? How does that work off of, assets and things like that? I didn't know the difference between a liability and an asset. I didn't know anything. All I knew is you just work as hard as you can for as long as you can. And then maybe one day later, way down the road, you'll be able to, like, hopefully retire. And that was the script and the path that I was on. That's all I knew. So when my wife, Julie, really brought that into our family, said, no, there is a new way. And it's about building assets. It's about becoming financially literate and setting these things up correctly that they can support us in a passive way. I'm like, I'm all in on that direction.
Right.
Wow, here's a roadmap. How do we do it? And our favorite asset class became real estate. We really loved that. And we studied that. And we worked hard at developing the skills to be able to do that. And we just started saving every single dollar, living way beneath our means. We didn't eat out. We didn't take vacations. We drove really crappy cars. We just became incredibly frugal and driven, and just saved every single nickel and dollar we possibly could to try to buy our first investment property. And we were so motivated and inspired by this goal that we could get there one day, and not like 100 years down the road, but like in this decade. And so we were able to skimp and save and put it together. And we bought our first rental property. And then that was just like, wow, it's working. There's, I don't know, whatever the first one was, like, there's $500 a month coming in after expenses. Wow, that now pays for a car, or that pays for, some food, or that, like, we're starting to live, we got 5% or 10% to our passive income goal.
Yeah.
And then we did it again and did it again. And then, and so that was a huge opening, and it was a spiritual process around abundance.
Right.
The gratitude. I would weep at times. So I was so incredibly grateful to learn this and to be on this path that I was like spared in a way, that I didn't have to grind myself into a pulp for 50 years.
Right.
To doing things that just were destroying me, or maybe even shortened my life, because of the amount of pressure and stress that I was under. So it was an incredible blessing to learn these skills, to develop, and we were able to accomplish that. I was able to create financial freedom in my 30s. And we now successfully live off of our investments and have that freedom. And I'm still, we love to give to charitable causes. We love to give back to our community and to help people that we love. And we have adventures and travel. And I've paid it forward by mentoring and coaching folks who want to learn about this stuff, how to merge the spiritual world with business and investing, and create this incredible freedom from the inner and the outer.
Right. You know, and I've been on the receiving end of so much of your generosity, you know, your time and your just sharing so much of your journey and how it wasn't easy, you know, at all. Something you said to me early on when we started talking a little bit more about money that helped shift it for me was, you know, where you're talking about financial freedom. And you're like, dude, that's punk rock, you know, like, and you had me at that. And I'm like, how's that punk rock? But yeah, the way you laid it out is like, you get to a place where if you decide to go this path, and it's fine if you don't, like we all make our own decisions. It's about learning, like you said, to get to a place where, you know, your money is going to start working for you. It opens up your life to, like you said, travel more, have more freedom. It's not about being rich and owning things. It's about, and that's what really I love.
Experiences.
Exactly. And that is what I could get behind, because I've never cared about having huge homes and expensive cars. And I like my things, you know, I like my guitar and my pedals, and sure. But when you helped frame it like that for me, you know, wow, maybe I can get to that place, you know, in my life.
I mean, we share a lot of similarities in music. And,
right.
And I was just deeply into that when I was a kid.
Yeah.
It's obviously still am today.
Yeah.
And I didn't realize until I made this connection that a lot of those punk rock bands, the DIY, they were entrepreneurs.
Sure. Yeah.
You know, the band was a business.
Yeah.
And they were passing out flyers was their marketing to invite customers or fans to their shows, you know, that were supporting the business, and they were doing it themselves.
Yeah.
You know, and so I loved that. I was like, wow, I kind of see the comparison to that. And if they did it really well, then their music would create royalty payments that would pay them passively.
Yeah.
So they would have like a financial freedom from that, where they were paid on, you know, album sales or whatever, or their songs being used for certain works. So it is a bit punk rock, you know, to take matters into your own hands, develop the skills, you know, execute on the plan, and just do it little by little from the ground up.
Right.
You know? And so, anyways, I know we use that analogy or that comparison. I think it works in framing it in a way that this can be a really cool thing.
Yeah.
And doable. And it doesn't have to be like, that's why I liked punk rock, was it was like, if you could play 3 chords,
yeah,
you had a guitar and an amp, and a friend had a drum, you could start a drum set, and another friend had a bass, you could start a band.
Yeah.
You know, you didn't have to be this corporate, you know, band, rock outfit. You could do it from the grassroots.
Right.
And you find out, like, I have friends who live in their vans.
Yeah.
And they're financially free.
Absolutely. Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
I think that's punk rock.
Yeah. And that's the beauty of it. Like, and so that's what I was saying before, is it being financially free doesn't mean you have millions of dollars. That certainly could be part of it. But like, if you don't have bills, if you're figuring out a way where you're living a life that you're happy, and I want to be clear, I'm not at that point. You know, I'll say it, like, I'm considering declaring bankruptcy. Like,
Yeah.
I don't know that I'm going to, but that's where I'm at financially right now. So I want to be clear with anybody watching or listening that that's where I am. But one of the many gifts, you know, I've received in our relationship is that I've seen it work for you, and I know I can trust you implicitly. It's not about scams or marketing or get rich quick. If anything, you've made it clear, and from, you know, the DIY like learning I've been taking on, that stuff, it doesn't work that way. You have to have patience, perseverance. Sure, sometimes you might get lucky in stock markets, but that's crazy. I'm learning about
house hacking.
Right.
You know, where you can turn your home into an asset.
Yeah.
You know, you can add an ADU to it and rent it out, or you could rent rooms in your house if you want to do it that way. There's so many ways to the path. You can walk down the path in many, many ways. It's not just one way, and you don't have to be greedy.
Yeah.
You don't have to be, that doesn't have to be part of this.
Right.
You be a loving, generous, well-balanced, centered person and have abundance in your life. Both can be true.
Yeah. Yeah. And so honestly, before you and I reconnected, I didn't know, or maybe I didn't believe that was true. But getting to know you and your incredible wife, Julie, and just seeing what like incredible human beings you both are, and then meeting some of your friends, you know, and being here for your gatherings and getting to see you teach and chant a little bit with you. Yeah, it's like, okay, I have to look at my own bullshit around it, you know, these outdated paradigms. And as I'm continuing to learn, like, so one of the things I'm doing right now is, I make sure, like, if I'm spending X amount of time researching or reading a book or watching some YouTube videos just about becoming financially literate, I might have like Krishna Das on in the background, you know, and it's like, okay. Or if I spend half an hour doing this, then I know when I go out and walk later, I'm going to make sure like I'm offsetting it. And I'm not saying anyone needs to do that, but that's where I'm at right now. It's like, I don't want to lose sight of one or the other. But what I feel is happening is they're starting to merge together. Yes. For me, that's separate. The way. Yeah, yes. And the way my mind works, you know, like that's what I have to do right now to bridge that gap.
That's a deep spiritual teaching.
Yeah,
you know, that you're finding some shadows.
Oh yeah,
you know, sure. Some veils that around abundance.
Yeah,
and this narrative that. Having abundance in your life's a bad thing.
Yeah.
Or I can't be a grounded, heart-centered person and have means.
Yeah. It's what I've known, you know, well, not that, but I have known, paycheck to paycheck, you know, I've that's been my life. And along with that, severe, like, self-worth issues, low self-esteem, like, oh yeah, no,
money brings up a lot of stuff.
It does. So what a great teacher.
It's a great teacher.
Yeah,
it really will show you, you know, it will mirror.
Yeah,
and if you don't see yourself, it will show you.
Right.
You know,
and that's where I'm at now. You know, I'm doing a lot of work just in my life in general, but you know, it's like, okay, I'm getting my life back on track, and part of that is I got to take my head out of the sand, and it's time to become somewhat financially literate. You know, the numbers I'm reading about people that are even older than I am that aren't literate or don't have any semblance of savings. It's scary.
It's
yeah, and I don't have a 401k. If I have nothing right now, but I believe I can change that. You know, and that's what I'm working towards. And I'm grateful that even at 45, I'm starting now rather than 47, 48, 50. I don't know. It's start somewhere. So what, you know, for somebody listening, maybe, I know you've kind of touched on it a little bit, but someone like me, you know, you've pointed me in a few different directions or given me some things to think about. And then I go and I do my own research based off of that. And it's led me to different teachers, different books, different YouTube channels. If somebody's listening right now, similar to where I was, and this is only a couple of weeks, you know, we've been talking about this for a while, but it wasn't until a few weeks ago I really started looking into this stuff. Somebody has no idea, and I'm sure it's just like spirituality. The same thing's not going to work for everyone. You said before, different pathways, and it made me think of, in regards to finances, I immediately thought of different pathways up the mountain, the spiritual mountain to the same top. So anyways, reining that back in, what are some recommendations? You know, are there, where does somebody start to become financially literate? Do you just type in Google, how do I become financially literate? Like, I've done things like that, but what would you say?
I would start with a question.
Mm-hmm.
What do you want?
Okay.
You have to have clarity around like a vision, like a compelling vision of your future, and really spend time. I call it vision planning, where my wife and I will come together and we really think about what is it that we want to bring into our, like, what's missing that we don't have?
Yeah.
You know, back when I didn't have freedom, it was freedom because I was really locked up by just a chaotic work life. It may be I I want to be mobile and I want to travel, or I want to go on a trip, or I want to spend time with my loved ones, or whatever it is. What's in your heart? What's like in your heart? Like really spend time here. If you're a meditator or you're good at that, spend time in meditation. Like and really think about it. What is it that you really, really want? And get clear on that. I want to buy a home because I want to feel secure. I want to feel secure. I want to feel secure in retirement, or I want to pay for my child's education, or I want to, whatever it might be. I want to limit stress. I want to get healthy. I want, like, what do you want? What do you want? And then from there, it's about putting the plan together to get that. So, developing financial skills was really just the plan to get where I wanted. So if I wanted to create freedom in my life, I needed a strategy that was going to get me there. How am I going to pay for my bills and my lifestyle? How am I going to pay for my life? How am I going to, all that stuff needed to be addressed. It wasn't just going to magically happen. How do you structure those things? And then that's where I went into the step of research, where I started reading, there's a lot of classic books, but one that spoke to me at the time, and it's an old book, was Rich Dad, Poor Dad. Yep. I think he got on Oprah back in the day.
Sure, yeah.
His book took off. But there's a lot of and there's new people today that are teaching these principles, but that book really opened the door. I didn't understand certain financial principles. Yeah. And then I graduated on from that book into other things that I started to study and learn. But there's the internet is a wealth of information. Yeah. If you want to dive in to learn that. But I would say first, what do you want? What do you want? What do you really, really want? Why do you want it? Answer that. Like, I want $1 million. Okay, why? What are you going to do with it? Where's it going to go? For what reason? Yeah. And then you peel the onion back on those reasons until you get to like a real core place. I want to take care of my family. I want to feel secure. I want to go see a place, go travel somewhere I've never been. I want an adventure. I want, why do you want that adventure? What will that do for you? It just feels like it's going to feed my soul. Yeah. I'm here to see things. I'm here to experience things. I want to taste different cultures. That's beautiful. So how are you going to design that and set that up and pay for that? And there's a practical. And so, or if it's I want to take care of my family, how beautiful is that? I want them to be able to have a beautiful life, to not have worries or concerns about where food's going to come from, or whatever. Beautiful. Who wouldn't want to give that to their family? So find the meaning behind what you want and attach to that. That's going to give you the rocket fuel to inspire you and to motivate you to take action and put a strategy together. And I often say, start somewhere. Most likely your plans will need to be updated. Sure. As you gather more information, as you experience it. You might need to edit them, but start somewhere. Start with a simple plan. I'm going to spend less and save more. Yeah. And then I'm going to save to this point. And then I want to put that into an investment vehicle. Which one? Okay, do some research. Learn. And if it's real estate, try the first one, learn how to do it, buy an investment property, or do some house hacking or an index fund, and this is not I'm not a financial advisor. Right. This is not financial advice. This is just my experience. I'm not telling you what to do. I take no, I'm not a professional. Invest at your own risk. Right. But, to me, it's about what you want, why you want it, and how you're going to get it.
Yeah. So I read Rich Dad, Poor Dad very quickly. I've never read a financial book in my life. I found, and I've mentioned that book to a few people since I read it. And it's usually, if they've heard it, I don't kind of scoff at it. And it's oh, all right. to me, I had a lot of different emotional reactions come up as I was going through. And I know I was texting you about a little of them. One of them was anger at how fucked up the system is, and I wish I read this book a long time ago. I bought a copy from my dad. He read it very quickly. Same thing. God, I wish I read this when I was younger. And you and I were even talking earlier about like taxes and where that money goes. And it's just, wow, the system, it's fucked. I'm not saying anything I don't think that is news to anybody, but I didn't recognize the degree to which, especially when it comes to finances, like it's so rigged against most people, yet the information is out there to learn how to like get around that, and get around that's not the right way, but learn to live differently. For me, it's living more intentionally with what I do, where I place my time, my energy. Part of that is becoming more financially literate, coming up with a plan. Like, what am I going to do moving forward? How am I going to secure some semblance of potentially retirement? Like, I've lived my life like I'll probably just die before I get anywhere near that. I was talking to a dear friend of mine, Mel, not too long ago, and he's a couple years younger than me, but he said, Chris, we've lived some rough years, a lot of rough years in regards to addiction. But we're both today on the other side of that. And he's like, if we really take care of ourselves, we could still have like almost half our lives left. And that was a big moment for me when he said that. It's like, holy shit. And you and I have talked, people are living a lot longer now than they did, not that long ago. So if I am going to take care of myself, and for me, my recovery, my mental health, my wellness, part of that has to be my finances too. And that's okay. And learning how to work smart with that, that's okay as well. I don't know where I'm going with any of this, but I'm just kind of sharing some things that have come up for me recently with all of that.
Yeah, it sounds like kind of an awakening.
Oh, very much so.
Of the world and how it works, and the systems that are in place, and learning how to be in those systems, and learning about how to navigate stuff, and it's beautiful.
I'll just say, to that end too, what I'm realizing is, so I faced some hard truths recently about my debt and what it might take to get out of that. And like I mentioned, would bankruptcy make more sense? I don't know. I'm still figuring that out. The weird thing is, while that is very hard to look at, I'm at a place in my life today where I can look at that, and I want to look at that.
Yes.
I don't want to bury my head in the sand anymore. And just by like showing up and starting to formulate a plan, no matter what that looks like, I'm moving in that direction. I think I was saying to you earlier that Rumi quote about, if all you can do is crawl, then crawls, something to that effect. I know I'm butchering it, but I feel like I'm crawling, but I feel like I'm crawling in the right direction.
Rumi also said the only light of the inner path is honesty. And having an honest conversation with yourself and discovering those truths and sometimes they're hard to look at. But when you can look at it through the lens of spiritual maturity and see the wisdom and what you went through, and you're here right now, and you still have a capable body, and time and all these beautiful blessings, that you can make course corrections. So that's the beautiful part,
right?
Is it's not over,
right?
Like, there's so many wonderful, inspiring examples of people who've done incredible things in the middle of their lives or later in their lives. We're of similar age. I'm entering into midlife, and there's so much I want to do. I haven't started a family yet. I want to do that. So Rumi also said that comparison is the thief of all comparison is the thief of joy.
Yeah.
And that, like, who cares what other people are doing?
Right.
Who cares what timelines other people are on.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
you're on your timeline.
Yeah.
And this is the moment that was picked for you to start this journey.
Right. Right. Yeah. And I know already it's lending itself to more ease in regards to my own mental health. You know, like who doesn't stress about money? You know, I'm sure most people do. And God, just instead of, again, I don't mean to keep using this phrase, but instead of burying my head in the sand and just, you know, like, it'll work itself out, starting to formulate a plan around it, that relieves so much stress. Having direction, like creating that budget, that lends itself implicitly to my overall wellness. You know, like, okay, I don't have much right now, but, you know, I'm well, I'm healthy, I have that. That's hugely, that's the root right there.
Why do you want to go down this path? What you seem like you're just genuinely excited about learning this information, studying it, using it, applying it. Like, who cares?
Yeah.
Why are you so into, like, why does it matter so much to you?
Yeah.
And I say that in such a loving way, just to invoke a feeling.
Right.
But like, what is your why behind this?
Yeah. Well, right now, you know, I'm excited to like have my life back in a way that in about to be 46 years, I don't know that I ever have. You know, I've had periods and years of sobriety and wellness, but I've in these last almost a year now since I had my last drink, like I have done a deeper dive than I've ever done. Like really looking at things that are not easy to look at. And there's, I'm sure, still more there, but just like I'm mentioning the way I'm taking a look at my finances, I'm looking at like character defects and just, you know, things where I could have been way better in my life. And like I said, course correction. You know, I can't change the past, but I can show up today. And so part of that is I'm excited to be alive. You know, life is far from perfect, but I'm grateful for where I am today.
So you have a future, a compelling future.
Yeah. For the first time, I really feel like I do.
Hey,
yeah.
You know, I want to implement this strategy.
Yeah.
I want to see where it goes.
Right.
I'm really excited about getting to the top of this mountain.
Yeah.
And then having the results pour into my life and experience that.
Yeah.
And beautiful.
It's cool that I give enough of a shit about myself today to even feel that way. That's huge.
Yes.
That's part of the excitement, I think, you know, like
the self-care, the self-love, the worthiness of it.
Right. Yeah. This is part of it. And so, you know, I know we've talked quite a bit about money and, but I'm grateful we've had this conversation because again, first of all, I don't think I've ever really talked about money in all of my years of doing this podcast. I think this is the first time, and what better person, you know, to do it with than you. But yeah, this is just, for me at least, part of being open and fluid in life to things changing, you know, and so I'm grateful that this one area, or multiple areas, but this one too, it's integral to the change that I'm making as a human being. And if I can become more financially responsible, just like I can become more responsible with all areas of my wellness, then I'm going to show up in the world a more skillful person. And that's who will be meeting anybody I come in contact with, whether it's a stranger on the street, whether it's someone I'm having on my podcast, whatever the scenario. Like you said before, earlier in this conversation, where you didn't want to have, you know, the Sufism and the money and Matt, like two different places. You wanted it to be here. That's who I want to be too. And that's who I've tried to be for a long time. And that's important to me. And this is part of it. So
there's only one Chris.
Yeah.
I think, right?
Yeah. And at the end of the day too.
Do you have a multiple?
No.
Okay. Just one guy. Okay.
Right. And also I know of people that listen and that are non-dualists and I'm in that school too. I love Ramana Maharshi and Nisargadatta Maharaj, and I practice self-inquiry and, you know, teachings on emptiness and sunyata and but like Nagarjuna said, the Buddhist scholar, there are two truths: the truth of the absolute, which is, you know, that which gives rise to this, the relative. the important part of that teaching, for me at least, is two truths. A lot of people on the spiritual path, myself included in the past, negate their humanity. I'll speak in I terms. I have negated my humanity. It was a burden. But no, what a gift. You know, like, yeah, it's fucking hard to be a human being. It's messy and ugly and terrifying, but it's so joyous and glorious and beautiful. And that's part of the condition. So learning to be in this world, but not of it, you know, learning to be okay and be embodied in this story of Chris. You know, Krishna Das talks about it. He's like, we are the director, you know, the star, we are the critics, you know, all in one. Like, and that's what's going on. I know for me, that's what's happening a lot of the time. But on good days, I rein myself back in and I'm present and I'm here with what is. And sometimes Chris isn't here. It's just like lifing itself through this vessel. But yeah, Chris is part of this story too. And that's okay. Today, something, whatever I want, whatever, is learning to appreciate and love Chris more. So
yeah, and I love that we can have this conversation about worldly matters, and like how finance and abundance it affects every person's life,
right,
you know, in one shape, way, or form. And so why not master that too? Like, and mastering the inner. I mean, the thing is, it's like, is your attachment healthy?
Yeah.
Do you have a noble relationship to it, where it's like, for me, I see it just purely as a tool.
Yeah.
It's a helpful tool to get to the things that I want to get to.
Right.
That's it.
Yeah. It's beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. So I think we're about at the hour-ish mark, a little over. Before we finish this conversation, anything we didn't touch on that you'd like to talk about, close with? Any thoughts, an offering, a prayer, anything?
I would love to live in a world where we can raise the bar of happiness, and that spirits can flourish and thrive, and that you can put your dreams back on the table. And it's okay to dream. It's okay to be happy. It's okay to be fulfilled. It's okay to have adventures. And it's okay to be you and all that.
Yeah.
You know?
You know, Matt, thank you. You've helped me reignite that in my life. You know, you've helped me actually remember, holy shit, it's okay to dream, and it's okay to go after those things. You know, it's okay to like live a good life.
Yes.
Nothing wrong with that. I've lived so much. It's in my mind. It's like again, that self-worth, that old, outdated self-talk and paradigm. So thank you for reminding me of that. Like so much. I am a better person today because I know you and you're in my life.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. I mean that, brother. Yeah.
Thank you for your kind words, Chris.
Yeah.
It's very mutual.
Yeah.
I love being in your life and being part of your life as well. Thank you for having me on this podcast. And I hope there's some takeaways for people out there. And if you want to find me, you can go to my Instagram, or that's kind of the main page
which
right
is, and I forgot to ask you before, I don't believe you have a website, but what is your Instagram?
So I'm putting it all together, and I do a lot of meditation teaching right now. I teach meditation classes, and I'm transitioning into this world, and in the world of social media and online marketing and all that. So bear with me, but I do have like an Instagram page right now, and new things will be coming online as I develop this new chapter in my life. Yeah.
And you know, I just want to speak to that. And, you know, that's a huge reason why I wanted to have you on this podcast is I've got to sit with you and learn from you in all areas of life pretty much. And it's important for me to share that with listeners of this show. I know, I know, and I can't wait to see how this flourishes for you. So it's an honor for me to help share that. And I can't wait to see where it goes, man.
Thank you, brother.
All right. Thank you for being on the show.
Yep.